Welcome to techCast, the podcast that quenches curiosity, powered by Q&A Markham. techCast, where we deep dive into the exciting world of technology, bringing you the latest trends, innovations, and thought-provoking discussions. Join us on this exciting journey as we explore the boundless possibilities of technology.
Hello.
Hi, Bashar. Nice
how
meeting
are
you.
Nitin? So,
All good.
I'm Bashar Saleh. I'm the founder and CEO of Payment.com, fintech company based here in the UAE. We provide financial technology services to micro and small businesses to help them with accepting payments.
Fantastic.
And obviously, we're very familiar with PCI Standards Security Council. Thank you for being here. I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you, Bashar. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction and about your company. And my name is Nitin Bhatnagar, and I'm a regional director for India, South Asia, Middle East, and Africa with PCI Security Standards Council. And I think this is really great times that we are in. And I think thanks for acknowledging that the PCI Security Standards Council has been doing some great thing in the region.
Absolutely. So I have a very quick question for you. So last year, around this time, you had a podcast here with Q&A about the PCI Security Council. That was right around the time you took your new role, and it was also part of the Payment Security Summit 2024. So in this past year, what are some of the findings? What have you noticed about the ecosystem and things that are changing within the region as it relates, if we're to look back to around this time last year?
Absolutely. I think it has been really an exciting time for us. And I think since 2024 April, when I took the role with PCI for the Middle East and Africa region, and I think I'm seeing tremendous growth with the engagement with the council by the stakeholders like you. And the interesting part is that we had recently the Al Etihad Payments join us as an affiliate member, which is a great accomplishment for the region because they are the one who are going to influence the standards and help us, influence these standards, make sure that they provide us the feedback, they give us the right inputs on what's working and what's not working. So I would like to thank the entire UAE today about their engagement within the council and their active participation, which is helping us making these standards more robust.
I mean, from what you're saying, it seems that we're seeing a lot more involvement, not just from your traditional participants as companies and banks and fintech companies, but it's extending and expanding more towards regulators and I would say like central banks here in the region, and how they're becoming more and more interested, and not just interested, actually they're becoming a lot more involved in not only participating but in shaping the future of
The payments.
Exactly, the payment industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that the good part is that you have to look at the kind of new emerging technologies that are shaping the future of the payments, and the form of payments are changing, right?
Yes.
You look at the cards, swiping the card on a POS terminal, to the mobile payments where you just have to have a virtual card on your phone, where you just need to tap a phone on a POS device and the transaction goes. The QR code based payments are picking up. The NFC based payments, the contactless payments are picking up. So there's a lot new forms of payments that we are seeing today, and I think this is going to change, right, as we talk about it. And that's where it is also very critical for the standards body like us, the PCI Security Standards Council, to also evolve our standards. And that's what the work that the council has been doing. And we are getting really great inputs from the industry, from the region, and this is actually helping us, make sure that we have the right inputs coming in, right feedback coming in from the stakeholders to make our standards more robust and helpful for the industry to adopt them.
Okay. Given that, and knowing all this information about the PCI Standards Security Council, and knowing what you know today, where do you see the role of the PCI Security Council within the overall information security? Is it more on the setting the standards? Is it on adapting to changes? Is it more on predicting where the market is heading. And the reason why I'm asking this, I would say, like as a second part to this question, is as everything continues to evolve, how are you keeping up with the changes? And like
Absolutely.
you mentioned basically emerging technologies. One thing I'd be interested to know is like what's happening with. I mean, we keep hearing about artificial intelligence. I mean, I'm sure every person I know has used ChatGPT, but that's just scraping the surface of what people are doing. There's
Right.
always malicious players in
Absolutely.
the market who are trying to exploit the system. So what can we expect from the PCI, from the Security Council, the PCI Security Council on that
Sure.
front?
So I think, see, let me also. It's a very long question, but I'll try to do justice to the answer. But with first of all, I think the listeners today on this podcast should understand what we do. We are a Security Standards Council. We develop standards. We manage these standards. But the compliance to these standards is managed by the payment brands, which is Visa, MasterCard, Amex, JCB, and Discover. Now, having said that, we are an educator. We educate. We create awareness. And that's what we are trying to do now, is by creating education awareness to the stakeholders about the standards, updates that we are coming up with. Now, this happens in two ways. One is evolving the standards, keeping up to the pace of the industry. How we do it, we have the stakeholders, as I talk about, we are seeing great engagement from the industry. We have the financial institutions, the payment networks, and the affiliate members and the APOs, the associate participating organization, coming forward and contributing to the RFC, which is the request for comment process. Now that's where we request industry stakeholders to provide us the inputs on our existing standards, because we need to evolve these standards, right? And the feedback is very, very critical to make sure that these standards are getting updated. That's the one way. The second is calling out industry stakeholders to come and join us, because this is the right time, because we are seeing those changes coming in. We are seeing those new forms of payments coming in. And that's where I would request the entire industry or the stakeholders on the industry to come forward and contribute to the standards by joining the council as an associate participating organization or the principal participating organization, which is going to help us in strategizing the plans for the year, right?
Yep.
Because what does the council should work is the PPO tells us. So the principal participating organizations are those organizations who are contributing in our strategy decision making,
Okay.
strategical decision making. Now, APO, PPO, they are different, but APOs give us those inputs because the draft standards are released back to the industry before it's public.
Before it becomes a standard.
Become the standard.
Yeah.
So we ask them for their feedback on the draft standards so that we are able to align ourselves or align our standards with industry inputs.
Okay.
Right? These are the ways. RFC, and in order to participate in an RFC process, you have to be an APO because that helps us getting the right feedback.
Of course. Of
Right.
course.
Now talking about how we are keeping up to the pace of the industry with the new emerging technologies, definitely we are working. And this group of PPO is meeting every quarter to talk about what are the changes that are happening in the industry, because they're the one who are deciding what's next.
Yep.
Right? Talking about AI, we have been working rigorously with the industry stakeholders, and we have already released a white paper which is on public on the PCI Security Standards Council website, and we have talked about the nuances, the pitfalls of using the AI as a technology, and how we can overcome. See, AI is really picking up, right? There's no second thought to it, but we need to also understand, how we should be using it, right? We don't know how this look like, what kind of outcome that we are going to get, but we have to keep an eye on this technology and keep evolving. So I would request the listeners, if they have not gone through, we have on our blog perspective a really nice post that talks about AI pitfalls. So I would request everyone to have a look at that blog post, which will definitely give you insights on how you should be adopting the AI in your environment today in order to meet the PCI requirements.
Okay. I'll definitely make sure that our team takes a look at it.
Yeah.
The other point I wanted to talk about is with the changes within the standards, if we're to look at the standards from their inception until today, we see that there is a lot of change in the emphasis that's being put on how the standards are being developed. One thing I personally noticed as we were chatting earlier, that there has been a significant push not only towards the technology and basically hardening the actual technology, but also hardening the people and hardening the teams.
Absolutely.
And how do you see the rule, or basically the role of the PCI as a whole, as a council, in basically pushing and addressing and adopting a holistic approach, let's say, towards information security at an organization level? How do you see that happening? How do you see it evolving?
Absolutely. I'm sure everybody, all the listeners on this podcast would heard about people, process, and technology. And we have been talking for long, right? This is the core principle on which the entire thing work.
Yeah.
But the people plays a very critical role here today. And training the people is going to help us with a lot of things. And hence, the PCI has a whole program around PCI trainings. Now we talk about the payment professional trainings, or we talk about PCI ISA trainings. They all these trainings plays a very important and critical role. I'll talk more about it, but another point that I just want to tell you, using or working with the trusted partners is another one aspect that the organization should embed in their culture. Working with the trusted partner means, working with the QSA companies who are listed with the council in a good condition, having an ISS within your organization, train them from the PCI Security Standards Council, have them the PCI IP certificates, which is Payment Card Industry Professional Certificate, which helps the individuals to get a better understanding of the basics of the payments industry.
Okay.
Right, and more importantly, having using the right solutions which are listed on the PCI website. So we have a PCI recognized, PCI recognized labs. We have which are there on the website. We have QSAs, we have ISAs list. We have the solutions that are validated against the standards of PCI. I would request, please have a look at that list, because that's the trusted partners, because they are being validated by the solutions are being validated and they are listed on the PCI Security Standards Council website.
Okay.
Talking about PCI ISAs always plays an important role because they have been trained by PCI, and ISA is internal security assessor. It is always going to help you manage and maintain your compliance within the organization, sync with the QSAs, and ensure that your compliance journey is smooth. That's where the ISS plays an important role. And I think that's very, very critical for any organization to think about when they're trying to go through the journey of adopting the PCI standards. Right? So in all, people plays an important role. If we are able to educate the people, if you're able to create awareness with the people, the journey with the compliance of the standards of PCI is going to be really seamless.
Okay. Now, as a startup, so for us, Payment.com, we are a startup, limited resources, and for many other smaller companies, let's say, or like people who are just getting their feet wet when it comes to PCI standards and PCI certifications, etc. This whole journey might appear daunting at times. First time we had our PCI DSS certification, I remember it being like for us, we celebrated once we got our passing. We passed the audit, and the one thing I wanted to ask is how do you see? Well, there are two things. The first one is how do you tell companies that want to be to adopt and basically adopt the PCI standards and apply them internally? Where would they start? How do you recommend they start? And the second one, is there a way for, like as technologies shift and change, do you foresee a lot of these things being taken over by, let's say, AI or by other tools, or becoming part of a standard that people would just tap into and make their life easier?
Yeah, I think I'll go back to my last answer, which I said about training the people. I think the basic is starting engraving those awareness, education within the team. That's going to play a very important role. And I know it's always for the startups, who are starting their journey with the PCI, understanding on the standard, reading the standard is going to be very, very critical. Because if you have a better understanding on what exactly that you're getting into, it helps you.
Yeah.
Right? And second important thing, getting at least the basic training on the implementation of PCI. Right? The PCI standard. And that's where the PCIP plays a very important role, because you get a very basic and fair understanding of what PCI standards are all about. Because the training is really very holistic in terms of making you understand the ecosystem, making you understand different types of standards, helping you in terms of understanding how these different standards are going to map with other standards.
Yep.
So training is the key for any company who's starting their journey with PCI, and also getting a fair understanding of what this standard is about. So they have to read as much as possible.
I mean, it's funny that you mentioned this. I just like you took me to back in time when we started our PCI journey at payment.com, and actually
sure.
it was before it. And I remember talking to the acquiring bank that we were dealing with at the time, and I'm like, oh, but I would like access to this API where I can send you the card so the form looks nicer.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we need your PCI DSS certification. And I'm like, what is that? And then like it was literally like it was like I opened Pandora's box, and yes, at first it was something daunting and scary, and it looked like it's a lot. But once you're right, once you start reading it, once you start analyzing and trying to understand what the standard is trying to do, and the kind of attacks and risks that it's trying to mitigate, that's where everything slowly but surely falls into place.
Absolutely.
It was a lot of education. It was a lot of learning. It had its challenges, but it was a very fulfilling and satisfying journey. I am where I am today about knowing about everything that's happening with information security simply because of that. But this brings us to the next thing. As I said, like about the journey that we've had at payment.com at the beginning, and this really makes me wonder. What do you say to companies as they're overcoming challenges when it comes to information security? I mean, obviously there are a ton of challenges that exist, from an always evolving threat, like the ever evolving threats when it comes to cybersecurity. There are a lot of changes to the regulations, changes to the standards, changes to the overall ecosystem. So overcoming challenges, what do you say companies should focus on in order to stay ahead of the curve?
I think, in order to be aligned to the new changes that are coming, and I think, as I said, I think it's very, very critical for you to work with the trusted partners. I'm going to repeat these few words because that's going to be useful for the audience, because they need to work really with the trusted partners. If you want to be ahead of the curve, making sure the changes that are there in the standards. If I talk about the PCI DSS version 4.0x, we have the best practices which are going to be mandatory by 31st of March 2025, right? So it includes multi-factor authentication, right? One of the requirements which the industry needs to start adopting to it, right? And more importantly, here you need to work with your assessor, the qualified security assessor. You need to work with your internal security assessor, and ensure that and you need to ensure that you have the right approach towards meeting these requirements of the standards, right? And also, talking about these overcoming challenges and the new regulations or the new standards requirements that we have, talking about phishing requirements, talking about social engineering attacks, talking about other new requirements that we have added, right? So it's very important to get the perspective right and how well it's basically fitting. So you need to basically do your own assessment first before anyone come and say, this is what it is, right? So if you're prepared, you know what is required to be done, you know the gaps that you have in your environment, you would be able to at least fix few beforehand, right? So getting the right set of people And it all links up with the training, education, awareness to the standards of PCI, and having a gap assessment within yourself to understand where you stand today would definitely help your QSA to reach to a stage where they can guide you or navigate you through those requirements to meet even before the deadline comes. So that's how you should be overcoming these challenges that you see around the regulations of new standards. But the mindset has to the mindset has to be like you need to accomplish it with the right intent, not just for following the requirements, you just following it, but you have to get yourself prepared first. Preparation is the key for any successful execution to any of the requirements of PCI standards.
One thing interesting that you said, not you said, one thing about your answer now is like it seems that almost everything that you're discussing is mindset, training, trust, and all of these are personal traits. Do you see that cybersecurity is becoming more humane or more human, and that's becoming one of the largest factors in how we have to approach cybersecurity rather than bits and bytes and ones and zeros? Because I'll tell you one thing. In my conversations with our own cybersecurity team and our own ISA, a lot of the conversations are more like, oh, we have to make sure that people are aware. We have to make sure that these tools are being used better. And I'm saying like there's a much growing larger emphasis about two things: human, like employee education, people education, and a top-bottom approach to cybersecurity. So where do you see what kind of advice do you have to entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders, let's say, who are not per se involved in cybersecurity, or they treat it as an isolated unit that comes up with a couple of requests every now and then? How do you think they should start viewing cybersecurity in their day-to-day business lives?
I think cybersecurity is very critical. I think when we talk about the payment security, I think it's again critical, right? And I think you need to prioritize. You need to prioritize yourself first within your organization, what exactly that you want to accomplish, right? And definitely when you say human, it's more now people needs to understand the importance of adopting to different standards. People should know about the threats that are looming around, right? In order to protect the payments, we need to create a lot of internal education to our own internal stakeholders. Now, if you talk about one of the threats, phishing is very common because we are using sometimes our personal and corporate computers. I'm sorry for that. We are using our corporate desktops or the computers for our personal use.
Yes.
And that's where the cyber criminals, I call them bad actors. They are the one who are using it for getting the financial gains. Education starts at home. That's where we need to educate our own internal stakeholders first.
Yep.
That's going to change the dynamics for the say payment security, or probably when you talk about securing the payment networks or payment infrastructure. I think it starts at home. When we are educated, when we are trained with the right set of trainings, with the right set of on the right set of standards, that helps you build trust and confidence, and as well as fight those nuances or the threats that are looming around on our organization. And one of them is phishing, which is very common, right? And you talk about the ransomware attacks.
True.
Right? And it all starts at some point where you have some kind of an identity fraud that happened with you, and it led to a phishing attack, and then it led to whatnot, right? So we need to educate our internal stakeholders first.
I think that's going to be very critical.
Yeah.
What about the future of the PCI Standards Security Council? Where do you see it heading in 2025, 26, and beyond? How do you see it evolving? You've mentioned at the beginning of this podcast how Tehad Payments has now joined
As an affiliate member.
as an affiliate member.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning the growing involvement of various regulatory bodies and central banks in the region in working towards shaping the standards and adopting the standards internally.
Absolutely.
So where do you see this going in the near future?
It's actually very interesting, and it's actually very really exciting times for us at PCI, because we are changing the way the payments are changing. That we are envisioning and seeing how the payments are changing, right? And it actually is helping. The inputs that we are getting from our stakeholders is really very encouraging, and we are trying to see how we can evolve our standards, how we can work on the new standards which can help protect the new forms of payments. Now, talking about 2025, we have really been going to be busy for this year because of many engagements across the region that we are going to see. We will be speaking in public events, whether it's going to be JISEC or JITEX. We're going to be there and make sure that we keep educating stakeholders, we keep creating awareness around the standards and the threat landscape that we are seeing in the region, engaging with the regulators, engaging with the stakeholders, making sure that we get more engagement. We have a couple of banks who have recently joined us as an APO, which is a great sign.
Amazing.
Right? Which shows that there is a positive outlook towards the standards of PCI, and I think that's what is important. And I think we are here to solve the problem. We are here to solve the challenges, and we are looking forward to the different opportunities that we can capture to make sure that we are securing the payment systems.
Okay. So working at PCI, which is a global organization,
Absolutely.
obviously it's an old organization. It's been around for a while. And
Absolutely.
it's definitely a global organization. How do you see the changes that are happening in the Middle East when it comes to like information security and the evolving landscape and compliance in the Middle East as it compares to other parts of the world?
Very interesting question. I think Middle East has been one of the priority market for PCI Security Standards Council. When I took up this role, and I think I was really excited equally, because I could see that this market is picking up on the payments, and there was a lot to educate these stakeholders, talk about the new changes that are happening in the space of payments, and how the PCI Security Standards Council has been evolving our standards, right? And if I have to look at the global landscape, definitely the market, the Middle East region altogether Middle East and Africa, I would qualify Africa. These are the regions, these are the countries within these regions are really looking forward to secure the payments, right? And if you talk about, I come from India. India has been in the forefront because the Reserve Bank of India in India has already referenced our several standards to the stakeholders to adopt them in India. Close to 7 standards have been referenced by Reserve Bank of India, and I think the adoption of the standards have really gone up, and this shows that the industry is really concerned about securing the payments, definitely with the help of the payment standards that we have. And we are really open to get more inputs on our standards, make sure that we improvise these standards, and the stakeholders are able to influence these standards from the region that they are from, right? Being a global standards body, we want to make sure that these standards remain global, with having the acceptance globally, because that's where we come from, and that's what we are trying to do, and that's where we try to get more engagement from the industry from different regions, so that we get those varied inputs to the standards, so that our standards team can work on these standards and to make them more robust.
Adapt them globally, I would assume.
Absolutely.
So does this mean that in the future that there's a chance that there will be like PCI as a global standard, but different regions may adopt their own local substandards? Is that something that may happen?
PCI is a global standards.
Yeah.
It's a global standard,
Yeah.
so we don't have any regional standards. Which we being a global standards body, we have the standards. For example, the PCI DSS version 4.0x. It's a
Yeah.
global standard. So there's no or the sub standard for any different region.
Okay.
So it's global for global industry, global payment industry.
One standard for everyone.
one standard for everyone.
That actually comes in very handy when you're talking about payments, global payments.
Absolutely.
Okay. And with this, Nitin, I just want to thank you so much for your time. For anyone who has questions, I assume they can go to the website of the PCI Standards Security Council.
Absolutely.
That is.
So we have a PCI Perspective blog post. If you want to really get more information on PCI Perspective, what PCI thinks, we have a blog post which we keep updating. There are weekly posts, there are monthly posts. Please do visit. If you have not subscribed, subscribe to the PCI Perspective blog post, and you get all the updates from the PCI, what's happening.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you, Bashar.
Thank you, Nitin.
Thank you.